Hi, I'm Don from DonDronesOn, and welcome to the February update on my Starlink internet experience. 3 topics to cover this month. First, the recent failure of 40 new Starlink satellites. Second, the new Starlink Premium service. And lastly, the continued roller coaster of Starlink performance. Let's get into it. I grew up in the 60s and distinctly remember being absolutely mesmerized by the Gemini Project rocket launches back then. And I'm still fascinated by the regular SpaceX launches, especially those spectacular first stage re-landings. So it was quite disheartening to hear that despite a successful launch, at least 40 of the 49 satellites on board the February 3rd launch won't make it to final orbit. The reason is strange though, a geomagnetic storm. So here's what happened. The 49 satellites were put into orbit in the usual way. SpaceX launches Starlink satellites into a very low orbit initially, only about 210 kilometers up. Then in the first few days, they run system checks and are able to easily deorbit failed satellites if they have to. The satellites are then supposed to individually fire up their maneuvering rockets and slowly bring themselves up to the operational altitude of about 550 kilometers and into the correct positions that they want them in the constellation. All good. In this case, however, the sun basically puked out a coronal mass discharge, and the resultant stream of charged particles created a mild G1 level geomagnetic storm in the upper atmosphere, with a KP index on February the 4th ranging from 3 to 5. Now, this level of storm is not uncommon, and it doesn't usually have a big impact on Earth. Drone pilots like myself start getting worried when the KP index goes above 5 because it can affect our drone's GPS positioning system. Now, up in space, the effect of the storm can be to heat up the upper atmosphere and make it slightly more dense. So these Starlink satellites, with their solar panels fully extended like sails, are now effectively flying into the wind, with the atmospheric drag at the time estimated to be about 50% more than usual. SpaceX immediately detected the problem, turned the satellites into what they call safe mode so that their solar panel is pointed straight into the direction of travel, reducing the drag. Unfortunately, it was too late. The satellites were already starting to slow down and drop in altitude too far to be recovered. On February the 7th, observers on Earth spotted some of them burning up, as you can see here. And then the next day, on February 8th, Starlink issued a press release acknowledging the issue. The 40 satellites are expected to fully burn up on re-entry, with zero chance of anything hitting the ground. This is just another reminder that space travel is risky, and not everything works out perfectly. It is indeed rocket science. Now, around the same time, Starlink announced its new Starlink Premium service. And some folks are starting to freak out about it, thinking that it means us regular Starlink users are going to get hosed as a result. To me, this makes no sense. The premium service is just that, a higher grade of service targeted towards small businesses or power users who have requirements for higher bandwidth, higher availability, and dedicated customer service. Starlink Premium is expected to be available in the second quarter of 2022, so really soon, somewhere in the April to June timeframe. The equipment cost has been set at $2,500 US with a $500 per month service fee, about 5 times higher than the regular service. And the dish itself has twice the surface area, enabling it to track and connect to more satellites, perhaps to more than one satellite at a time even. The dish is also said to be more robust, tolerating more weather and temperature extremes than the regular dishes. The Starlink website says with the current regular service, we can expect 100 to 200 megabits per second download speed, with latency, well, as low as 20 milliseconds is what they say. And the premium service is supposed to offer 150 to 500 megabits per second download speed. And it states a more precise latency of 20 to 40 milliseconds. Now, there are no data caps on either of these service levels, at least at this point. So, is the premium service a threat to the service provided by the regular subscription? I don't think so. The stated speeds are within the range of service we are seeing. Well, maybe. I'll show you my stats in a moment. You'll begin to wonder. And the premium service is simply more bandwidth. If you need more bandwidth, as many businesses do, then the service is now available. If you don't need it, the regular service will continue. Not a big deal. Okay, now let's get into my monthly performance metrics. And as I said, it is a bit of a roller coaster again this month, like January was. My first metric is the number of dropout events per hour. A dropout is any outage of 11 seconds or more. Outages less than about 11 seconds are essentially unnoticeable, even in an MS Teams or Zoom call. You might get a short freeze up on the video or warbling on the audio, but it's generally not a big deal. And of course, any sort of one-way streaming video service like Netflix or YouTube buffers enough data that you generally won't notice any short outages like this. So in February, I experienced 0.12 dropouts per hour, which in aggregate is no big deal, maybe 1 or 2 a day, about the same as January. The problem was that the dropouts came in clusters. February the 8th was the worst. Here's a screenshot I took that day when we were having outage after outage after outage. I was in a lot of MS Teams meetings that day and had to resort to using my phone as a hotspot. It was that bad. And then the next few days, they were absolutely fine. Like I said, a bit of a roller coaster. My second metric is total downtime, measured in total outage minutes per day. This brown candle, appropriately colored in January, is the 90-minute outage we had last month. Now, we didn't have a repeat of that, thankfully, but instead a lot of these smaller outages, as I mentioned. In this view, we can see more outage time due to obstructions, the green part, and far more network outage time as well. In terms of the obstructions, it's like the system has forgotten about all the trees and branches that it had learned about in the previous months and was trying to connect to satellites in problematic parts of my sky view. And you can see that in the obstruction viewer, where the red bits have seemingly, well, grown back from December to February. And no, there isn't a lot of snow on the branches of the trees. The dish has just forgotten. Now, I expect it will relearn the landscape, but this is pretty frustrating. The purple parts of the metric are outages due to connection problems from the satellite to the internet. Maybe in the downlink or some ground-based network issue, I don't know. It has nothing to do with my obstructions. Totally on the Starlink end, so I hope they get that part straightened out soon. Speed. Well, speed sucked in February. Part of this was, of course, during those periods of dropouts, because, well, when you have a dropout, you have to retransmit the packets, and so the speed will seem to be slower. But I noticed the speed was still low when the outage list was clear. Download speed has dropped to an average of 89 megabits per second this month, and the distribution of speed tests, as you can see on this histogram, has shifted to the slow side. Compare February with January or November. The lowest I measured was 8 megs down. The upspeed for that test was literally 0. The fastest I saw was 216, one of only 2 measurements I saw exceeding 200 megs per second. Upload speed was also lower, averaging 8, the lowest I've seen since I've been recording these metrics. Ping or latency averaged 52 milliseconds, about the same as January. So like I said, the speed sucked this month, and short outages that came in clusters were very frustrating. Let's hope this is just a sign that the system is still in its infancy and the Starlink team is continuing to make little tweaks from time to time. Some not so good. Well, that's it for February. An explanation of the sad loss of 40 satellites, my take on the new Starlink Premium service, and my ongoing performance metrics. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell for notification of my next update.